Okay, hi there, folks. You're probably barely able to see me, and that's kind of the whole idea. And then I can't see very well myself right now, but I do want to tell you about something that your government has done to you. And it started in the 19th century, and it's continued beyond with Social Security. I want to read from you pages of a book that was written around 1997, 98, and show you how. First of all, I want to say this: there are millions of retirees, including my mother, including many loved ones that I know, friends, um, co-workers, family, you name it, who of course, will file for their Social Security if they, many of them already have, and they paid in all their lives, and are certainly due that income to survive on when they can no longer work. But I want to show you an example of how Social Security has been job security for worthless bureaucrats and a poor retirement for you. And I'm going to do so by reading a book that was not written by me. I'm not going to tell you who the author is. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the contents of the book. And so let's uh, let's just examine one chapter, and I can tell you that once you hear what I read, you might have an understanding of why Social Security was really created, what it has become, and and how it is essentially just job security for DC politicians who use it to scare the hell out of retirees and make them completely dependent on government. Okay, well, here is one example of people who decided to do things a little differently, and we'll just explore their results versus the typical Social Security system. Now, again, this book was written in 1997, 98, so it refers to this occurring 15 years ago. Of course, that would be much longer now that it's 2023. But it says about 15 years ago, our federal government made a bit of a mistake. It allowed some local governments around the country to pull their employees out of the Social Security system. Many governments and government agencies took the hint and ran like hell. Now, some local governments that opted out of the Social Security scheme allowed their employees to do their own retirement planning. Others instituted pension retirements and other plans that did not mirror Social Security at all. But three counties did something unique. When they pulled out of Social Security, they concluded or they continued to require, sorry, um, they continued to require um, those employees to pay exactly the same amount into retirement disability plan as if they were paying uh, Social Security. The counties also matched those payments just as your employer would. This means, just as with Social Security, that the entire amount was effectively being paid by the employee. Okay, so how did the employees in three counties do? Let's use Galveston County, Texas, for example. These figures you're about to read are so spectacular, I wouldn't blame you if you thought I was uh, feeding you the big one and was just flat out lying to you, but it is the truth. The time I'll tell you where I got them. They came from the brief analysis number 215 at the National Center for Policy Analysis in Washington D.C. I'm not sure, but I think these people analyze government policies. Galveston, Texas employees voted to get out of the Social Security system in 1981. Each employee each employee's new contribution to the retirement system was 13.78%, very close to that old Social Security contribution. Of that amount, 9.7, well, the actual figure is 9.737%, was paid into each employee's private individual retirement account, which returned 6.5% compounded daily. The remainder was used to pay disability and life insurance premiums, to cover employees in case of an accident or premature arrival at room temperature. In other words, kick the bucket. I know numbers can be dry and boring. Well, the results of Galveston County's retirement plan are anything but dry and boring. Wait till you see what happens to Galveston County employees when they reach retirement age. For example, a county employee on the low end of the scale making $20,000 a year. And again, this book was written in 1997. If this person were to rely on Social Security, he would be getting the princely sum of $775 a month. Wow. You couldn't exist on that. Then you sure as hell couldn't live on it now. What a deal, huh? So, I'm going to turn the page. Just where are they going to spend all that money? This county employee is lucky though, because he has the Galveston County alternate plan. Instead of $775 per month, he gets paid $2,740 a month. Quite a difference, don't you think? For a moment of what this could mean, think of a moment, pardon me, of what this could mean to your own retirement. Folks, we're talking $775 versus $2,740. That is a tremendous difference. And it's proof that when you don't eliminate retirement, but when it's put in the hands of local governments, as our Constitution, 98% of governments, with the exception of war, military, defending our borders, is the responsibility of each individual community, and it is best handled that way. Okay, so what about our higher priced paid county employees? The professional types, engineers, administrators. A Galveston County employee who was making about $50,000 a year would get about $1,302 per month from Social Security. That's about $15,600 a year. Again, I want to remind you this was 1997. But oh happy day, he doesn't have to rely on Social Security. The Galveston County alternate plan is going to pay him $6,843 a month. That's 82,000 a year compared to $15,600. There's more. Under Social Security, when a worker dies, there is a one-time death benefit paid to his survivors, the princely sum of $255. Again, 1997. Under the Galveston plan, the worker survivors get a life insurance payment equal to three times his salary. The minimum is $50,000 with a $150,000 maximum. By any measure, the employees of Galveston County, Texas have a much better retirement deal, and the millions of Americans who must rely on Social Security let this let this sink in. Now, Galveston County employees get got fatter checks after they retire uh, than they did when they worked. They got paid more under their retirement than when they were working because local governments that do not have agendas based in DC were able to work out far better plans through reform. The Democrats have always fought any reforms. So, and I'm sorry my glasses keep falling off. Um, I have a broken frame here. But anyway, I'll sum it up and keep reading. So, if such tremendous benefits can accrue outside the Social Security system, why haven't more governments built bailed out like Galveston County did? They didn't. You want to know why? In 1983, liberals in Congress passed a law saying that no one else could escape. They erected an economic Berlin Wall between you and a comfortable retirement. It's a matter of survival. Sorry, I keep dropping my glasses, folks. This is not very professional, I guess. But anyway, uh, it was a matter of survival. Too many people stood to escape government dependence for independence. Independent people don't vote for liberals, and they sure as hell don't vote for Democrats. If you aren't yet convinced that Social Security is a bad deal and getting worse, maybe this will do. In 1950, when your parents might have been starting grade school, there are 16 people working and paying their Social Security taxes for every person receiving benefits. In 1997, there were about 3.3 people working and paying in Social Security taxes for every person on the taking end. By the, by the year 2030, the ratio will be less than 2 to 1. Think of it this way: it's one thing when 100 people get together and buy a yacht, but if 98 of them die and leave the remaining two with the full cost of the yacht ownership, you're going to see a for sale sign real quick or an insurance claim. It's plainly obvious Social Security is a disaster. So you see, uh, wondering, you sit there wondering, why hasn't this been fixed? Let's see how clear I can make this. The largest single identifiable block of voters in this country are Social Security recipients. These are people who drive down in large cars right in the center lane at the busiest street at 20 miles an hour and with a turn signal stuck on. On the third day of every month, on the way to deposit their Social Security checks, they are the sole remaining support for what the white cotton glove industry, or for the white cotton glove industry. If you don't know anything else about these people, you had better believe that they vote. They vote on basically two issues: Social Security and Medicare. And the and the point is, this is nirvana for liberal politicians. This is job security for them. They have an extremely large block of voters who have their votes clearly for sale, to the senator or representative who will make them feel the most secure about their Social Security or Medicare payments. But they don't have a great deal. The states and the counties do a far better job, and DC took the time to make sure that no one could ever do this again. So you're stuck in this system. You could be a multimillionaire and not even want to participate in Social Security anymore. You could say, well, I don't want to claim it, but by law you have to once you turn 65. The bottom line, these liberal congressmen and senators are taking your money by legal force and using that money to buy votes from uh, senior citizens who won't be able to, uh, well, let's just say that uh, by the time this group of people has passed on, it's sweltered into something worse. Well, wait, you might say. There is a Social Security Trust Fund out there, and that's where all your Social Security taxes are going. Sorry, you have been lied to again. Yes, there is a Social Security Trust Fund, but there is no money in that fund. Nothing but a bunch of IOUs from the federal government. You have a very odd situation going on here, folks. It's incredible what the government has done to retirees and how Democrats have uh, essentially protected their jobs. Now, there wasn't a lot that I liked about the George W. Bush administration, and I will say that there, there were certainly problems. But this is why that when George W. Bush tried to give you a little control in your plan, and it was just to let each individual take 3 or 4% of their Social Security. They didn't have to change anything. They could stay in the plan, but they could take 3 to 4% and put it in an IRA, put it in a bank account and let it draw interest, put it in an investment. There may be a little risk to this, but it gave each individual person better options. And liberal Democrats do not like individuality. They do not like individualism. We can see that from Galveston County, Texas, in the example that I gave to you. And this is how the government has controlled liberal politicians every election. They start calling elderly people and scaring the hell out of them. Hey, you vote for those Republicans, they're going to take away your Social Security. Well, here's a little factoid. There is not one Republican, not one, that has ever proposed a bill to reduce the amount of wealth that, or to take away essentially any uh, retirees' Social Security. It was Barack Obama who, in during the Health Care Act, cut Medicaid by trillions, I believe, in the long run. I knew it was a lot of money. And this came at the point of, for several years, those who were disabled not getting any raises, no income raises for the year. I know several people who were disabled, and they they could have used that raise at the time, considering that the economic factors only usually increase by the year. Now, I realize that these numbers are, from a time ago, and in some cases, I just gave you random examples of people earning 20,000. Now, I know someone who is drawing about 13,000 a month, or excuse me, 1,300 a month. However, that person is drawing on their deceased spouse. Most highest estimate of years of income file. Folks, it's like a Ponzi scheme. Could you imagine if a private company did this? Their CEOs would have been jailed. They would have been sued for fraud and shut down by the government. But because this is Washington D.C., nothing has nothing has been done about this injustice. We need a real social security form, and it should be something like the citizens of Galveston County were allowed to do. But because the Democrats put a block on that, no one is allowed to escape it anymore. Now, it won't matter for people so much my age. Excuse me, I lost my glasses again. And it won't matter so much for those who are about to retire or have retired. But for those of you who are young folks, and or maybe you have a son, daughter, and they're college age, and they're going to be entering the work world, what do you think would be better for them? Would it be the Galveston County plan, or would it be to pay in the Ponzi scheme of Social Security? I mean, you're talking worse than Madoff when you put these numbers together. Would you rather your child, when they retire, draw a $700 check, 775, I believe, or would you rather them draw $2,700 a month? Would you rather them draw 15,000 a year, or would you rather them draw about $74,000 a year? That's what these type of reforms could do for our seniors. It 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 covers all areas. Burial insurance, those left behind. I gave you the numbers of what those if you die early, and what your loved ones get compared to that puny amount now. Now, the amount I quoted to you earlier, I believe, has been raised, but it's still nowhere near the amount. And this is how liberal politicians control the elderly vote. And this is not an anti, trust me, I have a mother, she's 72 years old. I have friends and family my whole life who are retirees who rely on that monthly Social Security check, but they do so because they use their wits, and they do so just by the hair of their chin. And if something really bad happens, it can all fall apart for them easily. It's difficult to save money, even though that retirees tend to have more expendable income because their homes are paid for, and I'm talking in general. I'm not saying that you might know someone who doesn't, but when you put all class or the working class together versus the retirement class, you and there are studies that validate this over and over again. Retirees have more monthly expendable income. Well, think about what it could be and what it could be for their loved ones after they pass away, and for them to have a a burial with dignity that doesn't destroy the financial situation of their loved ones left behind in order to honor the deceased's last wishes. The government is running the biggest Ponzi scheme out there. This disaster was started by FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and the Democrats. It was continued In when President Johnson came into office, Woodrow Wilson had some things to do with this, but ultimately the Democrats opposed any reform to Social Security. We're talking about 3 to 4% you control. They would not have it. And all their Hollywoodites went out and said, well, George W. Bush wants to put money into the stock market. That's a bad idea. No, that was one of the options for each individual. You could stay right in Social Security and not affect anything. But you could roll 3 to 4% into an IRA, or you could put 2% here and 2% here, things that are guaranteed to grow, folks. We see this from the example of Galveston County, Texas. But the Democrats, the liberals, as I told you, made sure this could never happen again. So if you really want to vote for your children's future, I'd think about what I just read to you out of this book. And in some places I ad libbed and everything. And I'm not going to tell you the author, I'm just going to say that he has been one of my greatest mentors throughout my life. I got a broken frame, sorry. But this should be a lesson to you that when things are not handled by local government, and that is what intended was intended by our founding fathers and our Constitution. Uh, Everything gets politicized, and it becomes about does my butt get back to Washington D.C. every 4 or 6 years, depending on if they're a senator or a congressman or what have you. And of course, each individual states have some recall uh, options, but it just doesn't work out. It's proof that when local communities are allowed to govern themselves, local communities take care of each other. You ever heard the old expression, "We take care of our own"? Well, that is exactly what happens. But when you put this stuff into the hands of DC, it becomes chaotic and it becomes nothing, as I said, as the book said, a, a guaranteed job for leftist politicians who, if most of which, if had to get a job in the private sector, you wonder would they even last a week. So if you really want to vote for the future, people my age, you could still uh, make change for yourself. Those who are already retired, it'd be really hard. But one of the ways we could do this is through something called the fair tax. And it was promoted by Congressman John Linder, former Congressman John Linder, I believe, and Neil Boortz, a radio talk show host. There is a book out there. Look for it, read it, and ignore the Bookings Institute analysis. That thing is so outdated. Al Franken tried to peddle that crap. It doesn't accurately examine the the tax plan. Most people who are critical of this plan either don't understand it or are lying about its effects because they want to maintain their control. They want to be able to control a huge voting bloc. They do the same thing with minorities. They do the same thing with women. They do the same thing with the youth vote. Uh, Democrats, as I said, they don't have much use for individuals. We're all individuals. And the only way to protect everyone is to protect the individual. Ayn Rand, who was a Russian woman, and I believe she escaped Russia and came to the United States, she wrote that the smallest minority on earth is the individual. And those who profess to be defenders of minority groups are not defenders of minorities, because groups are not individuals. You want to protect minorities, you protect each individual person, not groups of people. And that is something that the Democrats have used to essentially overrun your Constitution, step on the Bill of Rights, and ensure that they maintain control, even if it's not their party that has control of Congress, even if it's not their party, uh, as long as the power stays in the hands of DC, because they've lost control of Congress. The House is in Republican hands now, but until there is real reform, nothing will ever change. So if you want to see change, these old school Democrats who